What's up, my guys? What's up, my girls? AKA my dear and beloved Danny Flowis. It's good to be with you one time for the 13 times. I'm your boy Danny Flow, your favorite podcast teacher. I may not be the best, but I'm your fave. Or perhaps this is the first time listening. And if it is, I'd like to be your favorite podcast teacher. I'd like to think I'm your soon-to-be favorite podcast teacher because after you listen to this episode, you're going to wonder why it's not called the Firecast, as my boy Art affectionately called it one time. Shout out to you, Art, and your beautiful family. I really miss you guys. So I like to teach. I like to teach things, or as I like to say, tings, a pronunciation that I stole from my wife, by the way. Shout out to you, baby. I teach you how you, my guys and my girls, already philosophize and how you can do it better. Why I think y'all should strength train, why we should be getting married and becoming parents younger, and why we should all be Catholic. And yes, I'm aware that I'm weird, but you like it. So on this episode, I'm going to focus on philosophy, or as my lovely wife likes to say, what's new? Am I right? Okay, cool. Last week, I briefly mentioned that I think philosophy as an academic discipline or subject of study has somewhat of a social stigma attached to it, but not necessarily philosophy as the act of philosophy or philosophizing, which is the act of explaining or giving reasons for what we think and why we think what we think. Sometimes we even explain how we came to think something. And the main point of philosophizing is we want to demonstrate why we think what we think is true. And I assert that's something we all do, and we do it even if we're unaware that we do it, and we don't have a problem with that. We have an apparent problem with philosophy as an academic discipline. And I say apparent because it could be there, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'm no prophet, but I'll probably be wrong again. But anyways, this stigma is something that I heavily implied in my very first episode, which you're welcome to listen to if you haven't. In that episode, I explained the reasons why I don't study philosophy, like just to get a job or just to get rich, which is impossible. But that leads me to this week. I think there are also stereotypes about philosophy or people that are into philosophy. I think that some of them are funny. You, my guys and my girls, probably won't, but I'm going to discuss two of them that I found on a Reddit thread. I'll include the link in the description below. Full disclosure, I don't have a Reddit account. I don't fully understand what Reddit is for. I found the thread via the almost omniscient Google. Okay, cool. So as always, if we consult the almost omniscient Google, we get a pretty good definition of stereotype. Quote, a widely held fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing, unquote. So like I said, pretty good definition. It's basically an oversimplification, reducing someone or something to a single thing. So for example, if you think students that major in philosophy are going to have a hard time finding a job, then that's a stereotype in multiple ways. First, it oversimplifies the study of philosophy to only having the end of gaining employment. Second, it oversimplifies studying anything to that, actually, as Oscar from The Office says, actually. Third, it oversimplifies philosophy to something impractical, as if very few jobs need a philosopher. Critical thinking is taught in philosophy, and every job has some level of critical thinking. It's not like all philosophy is trying to answer the meaning of life. All right already. I'm done. I don't want to sound too rantish. So, like I said, I turned to the almost omniscient Google to find philosophy stereotypes to see what people say or what people into philosophy experience, and I was kind of disappointed. I tried phrasing it a bunch of different ways. I'm actually embarrassed at the number of ways I tried phrasing it, and I didn't really see anything funny or interesting. So I kind of settled on the Reddit thread. No offense to Reddit, or no offense to Reddit members / users. Like I said, I don't fully understand what Reddit is for. So the first stereotype is, quote, my parents still think I'm studying philosophy. It's been 5 years, unquote. So I picked this one because I saw it multiple times on the thread, and this is one that has happened to me. I tend to get philosophical real fast, or as fast as I possibly can when I interact with people, which is why nobody wants to talk to me. But it's 2020 and podcasts are a thing, so I have an outlet. I spend a lot of time at my job. I'm an office worker by day, pizza cutter by night, motivator on Mondays, podcaster on Tuesdays, a student on Thursdays, philosopher on Fridays, weightlifter anywhere from 0 to 6 times a week, and Catholic husband and father all day, every day. But the point is, one time at work, I had a conversation with a coworker in the office, and it got philosophical, as I planned, because I'm sneaky like that. And I explained I'm a philosophy student. And after that, a few times, he jokingly, or probably not jokingly, said he didn't want to talk to me because he didn't want to be psychoanalyzed. And I can't remember if I corrected him or not after the first time. So once he was kind of excited to mention to me that one of his daughters was learning about psychology at school. So yeah, I know little to nothing about psychology. I can try and list the things I do know about psychology to make my point. So let me start with the definition of philosophy, the historical definition of philosophy, which is the love of wisdom. That's literally what the word means, and that's what we try to do. We try to seek wisdom. Psychology, that means something different. The word means the study of the psyche. The psyche, that word means soul. I forget in what language, because like I said, I know little to nothing about psychology. But what psychology actually does is they study the mind and human motives. And I wonder if some people just confuse philosophy and psychology because they both start with the letter P. It really could be that simple, but I don't know. Because in philosophy, we attempt not to assume. So the other thing is, I know psychology became popular in the late 19th century with Sigmund Freud, and he had his biggest influence in the 20th century. Today, psychology is considered a social science, I think along something with like sociology. And philosophy is considered a humanities along things like art, language, and music. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing I know is that Fulton Sheen knew a lot about psychology because he was a very well-read man, and it was becoming popular around the time that he was growing up, because he grew up at the beginning of the 20th century, and by the time he was a priest it had already become popular. If you don't know who Fulton Sheen is, I have a mini intro on him and you're welcome to listen to it. It's episode 12, and I also did an episode about a chapter on teenagers in one of his books that you're also welcome to listen to. That's episode 16. If you listen to those, let me know what you think. Okay, cool. So the second stereotype is, quote, "The two strange ones I've run into are that philosophers can't do science, or that philosophers must be geniuses," unquote. So this is kind of a 2-for-1 special. I picked this one because the latter part about having to be a genius to study philosophy showed up multiple times on the thread, and both the latter and the former happened to me as well. I had one coworker tell me philosophy wasn't based on facts. I had another coworker tell me, this was before I decided to major in philosophy or long before I was even interested in philosophy, he said that all you had to do to be a philosopher was say you're a philosopher. So I guess I should tell you what I think people mean by science. So science is usually broken down into life sciences and physical sciences. A life science is biology, for example. A physical science is physics and chemistry. So I did have a super hard time with chemistry. When I took that class back in my community college days, I took the supposed easiest chemistry class. It was called Chemistry and Society. I took it because, like I said, it was supposed to be the easiest chemistry class, and it had a lab, and I needed to fulfill the lab requirement. When I started the semester, I had every intention to read and understand the material, and it became very difficult for me rather quickly, and so I turned to the almost omniscient Google for the answers. Holla, 5 years later, ain't nothing changed. I'm still Googling for this podcast. So with biology though, I'm into lifting, and biology was interesting and pretty easy to understand, especially when it came down to the muscular and skeletal systems. I did, however, take advantage that particular semester of the tutors that they had on campus, so that helped. So philosophers can do science, it just depends on which one, right? Which science you're talking about: biology, anatomy, chemistry, physics. We have to be interested in it, and interests are a mysterious thing the more that you think about it, as far as like what explains what you're interested in. Some people think it's the way that you're brought up, but like I said, the more that you think about it, it's kind of a mysterious thing. I like to tell people that I'm interested in philosophy because I'm obsessed with knowing objective truth, and I think that philosophy is the best way to come to know objective truth. But I'm sure that it's more complicated than that. The other answer that I gave is I don't know why I'm into philosophy. So the more that you think about interest, the more that you kind of realize that it's kind of a mysterious thing. And I do think about interest and its origin because I'm a philosopher, and that's what we do. We think about things and we rethink about things, and just when we think that we're done thinking, we think again. And also though, with respect to this stereotype about not being able to do science or having to be a genius to be into philosophy, philosophers use scientific information in their arguments. That doesn't guarantee that we'll use it correctly, but we can use it. So you don't have to be a genius to study philosophy. You just have to be interested in it, like everything else. And you do kind of have to be mildly obsessed with ideology and which one is true. You can, of course, come up with your own ideology, but then if you're serious about being a philosopher, or if you're serious about your interest in philosophy, then you would have to explain why the ideology that you came up with is true or is better than the rest that have existed. Because that's another thing that we do in philosophy, is we look at the different ideologies that have existed over the course of human history, and we analyze them, we try to explain them as best as we can, and we try to extract wisdom from them, and so on and so forth. So if you consult the almost omniscient Google, ideology is, quote, a system of ideals and ideas and ideals, unquote. It also says that that's especially with respect to economic and political theory, but those are just two examples of a type of ideology. And like I consistently assert, we don't all study or even like philosophy as something to study, but we all philosophize and tell each other what we think. And maybe you are, and you aren't geniuses, my guys and my girls. I don't know your life, but you're welcome to share your thoughts, aka philosophize with your boy. So let me know what you think, my guys and my girls. Do you understand philosophizing a little bit better? Yes or no? And why? Do you understand what I mean by stereotype? Have you heard these stereotypes about philosophy that I shared? Do they make sense? Yes or no? Do you know the difference between philosophy and psychology? Do you think philosophers can't do science? Are philosophers geniuses? Do you know what ideology is? Let me know what you have an ideology or a philosophy on. How? That's a great question. Please send me a DM on Instagram at Dani_flow, DANI_FLO. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Send me a snap if you've added me on Snapchat. Send me a voice on Anchor, a voice message on Anchor. The link to that is below. However you, my guys and my girls, want. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. I very much want you to keep watching. Please like and share the link to the video so that you can help me grow my channel. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and let me know in the comments below how you find me and what I did to gain you as a subscriber. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thanks so much for listening. Please share the link to the podcast so you can help me reach more people, and leave a review if you're feeling generous with your time. Link to support the Dani Flow podcast financially is below. Please consider it if you like the podcast, if you get value from it and you want to add a monetary value to it. I'd really appreciate that. If not, that's cool. Please keep listening and share my podcast with your bestie and your nextie bestie. Please share the podcast on your IG story if you're feeling generous as well, and subscribe or follow my podcast on YouTube and whatever other platforms that you're using so that you know when I upload a new episode. So thanks for putting up with me, my guys and my girls. I'm aware that I'm weird, but you like it. So let me know what you guys think. We're a fan of thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. We like thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. So please share your thoughts with me. As always, my dear and beloved Dani Flowist, remember what venerable servant of God, Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen taught us. Your life is worth living. Love you, my guys and my girls. Bye.